I used to look up at the sky and laugh at people who talked about Jesus. I thought it was all nonsense, a crutch for weak people who couldn't handle how harsh life really was. I was the rational guy, the hardcore atheist who explained everything with science, logic, numbers. No faith, no prayer. Just me and my achievements, my new car, my neat little apartment. But man, deep down, there was this emptiness I kept ignoring, like a hole that slowly grew, making me restless at night. I filled my time with work, parties, friends who thought just like me, but when I was alone, I felt a loneliness that not even beer could fix. I thought it was normal, that everyone lived like that. No bigger purpose, just surviving. I remember one time, sitting on my couch, scrolling through my phone, seeing people posting about miracles this, deliverance that, and I'd mock them in the comments. Wake up, that's just coincidence. Changing my life? That wasn't even a thought, because to me, life was what I built with my own hands. No God, nothing supernatural. I drove everywhere, loved the road, the wind hitting me, feeling like I was in control of everything. That day it was pouring rain, but I ignored the warnings and thought, I got this, I always do. The radio talked about floods, streets underwater, but I laughed, pressed the gas harder, because I thought I was the king of the damn world. The water started rising slowly, first soaking the tires, then coming into the car. I cursed, hit the steering wheel, tried to reverse, but the engine choked. I looked around, distant houses, no one on the street, the sky so dark it felt like the world had given up. I screamed for help, hey, someone! But the rain drowned everything out, and panic tightened my chest. For the first time, I felt like my logic couldn't save anything, like I was trapped with no way out. The car shook, water slamming against the windows, and I thought, that's it. It ends here. But then something shifted, a strange calm in the middle of the chaos. I didn't know it then, but that flood was about to be the beginning of a transformation I never imagined. The water kept rising fast, covering the hood, and I fought with the seatbelt, my hands shaking. I screamed again louder, help me! Without even knowing who I was calling for. The car sank deeper, the pressure growing, and suddenly everything went dark. In that moment, the tough atheist inside me started cracking, making room for something I had denied with all my strength. And that's when the light appeared, deep under the water, shining like it was calling my name. I blinked, thinking it was just hallucination, lack of oxygen, but it came closer, and with it, a hand reaching out. My heart raced, a mix of fear and hope I had never felt. I grabbed that hand, strong, warm, and pulled with everything I had. What happened after? Well, I woke up on top of a tree, miles away, with the seatbelt still locked inside the car that had gone under. But that's for the next part of the story. I was there, stuck in the driver's seat, water rising to my chest. Cold, invading everything. The car was turning into a floating coffin, and I, who always bragged about never needing anyone, started pounding on the windows with my fists, yelling, help! Someone get me out of here. The rain fell so hard it sounded like a solid wall, swallowing my voice. I looked around and saw distant lights from houses, but no one came. Panic crawled up my throat and I thought, this is the end, man. You thought you were invincible, and now you're going to drown in a luxury car. The irony hurt more than the water. I tried calling 911, calling a friend, calling anyone, but the phone was dead, soaked. The seatbelt I always mocked as too much caution, now held me down like an anchor. I pulled, forced it, tore my shirt trying to get free, but nothing. The water rose to my neck, and I accidentally swallowed a mouthful, coughed, spit it out, tasted mud and fear. For the first time, logic didn't explain anything. Where was science now? Where was everything has an explanation? There was only me, the darkness, and a silence louder than the storm. Suddenly, the car jolted, like something had pushed it. The current dragged me, and I saw trees, poles, fence posts rushing past the window. My heart pounded so hard it hurt my chest. I thought of my mom, who always talked about Jesus, about faith, about praying before traveling. I laughed at her, said it was a waste of time. Now, with water up to my chin, I whispered softly, almost unintentionally, if there's anyone out there, help me. It was the first time I admitted, even if deep down, that maybe I didn't know everything. The water covered my head. I held my breath until my lungs burned. I pounded the roof of the car, desperate, but it wouldn't budge. The pressure in my ears, the absolute darkness, and me thinking, I'm going to die without even saying goodbye. That's when the light appeared. It wasn't a reflection, it wasn't headlights, it was a white, warm light cutting through the murky water like a lighthouse in the middle of nowhere. And in the center of it, a figure. A man. Arms open, looking straight into my eyes. I froze. He reached out his hand, and without thinking, I grabbed it. I felt a strength that wasn't mine pulling me upward. When I opened my eyes again, I was hanging from a tree, my body aching, my clothes torn, but alive. The sky was still raining, but I could breathe. I looked down. The river roared, carrying everything away. And the car? Gone. Later I learned the firefighters found it miles away, underwater, the seatbelt still locked. How did I get out? How did I get there? Science can't explain it. But I know one thing. Someone pulled me out. And that someone wasn't coincidence. If my story is already stirring something in you, stop everything and do this. Give this video a like right now, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. Because there's a lot more coming. Deliverance, miracles, transformation, and you don't want to miss it. Let's strengthen this chain of faith together. I opened my eyes slowly, like my body still didn't believe it was alive. The rain was soft now, dripping through the leaves above me. My face was pressed against a thick branch, my arms hanging, my legs wrapped around another one. The smell of wet dirt, grass, and river filled the air. I coughed, spat out water, my chest heaving like I had run a marathon. I'm alive. I'm alive. I murmured, my voice hoarse, almost unrecognizable. I looked down, about 20 feet to the flooded ground. The river still roared, carrying pieces of fence, a refrigerator, even an overturned car. My car. Gone. But I was there, hanging on that tree, like someone had placed me there with care. I tried to move. Pain everywhere. Ribs throbbing, knees swollen, a cut on my forehead dripping blood mixed with rain. But the panic was gone. In its place, a strange calm, almost sacred. I laughed. Laughed out loud, alone in that tree because it was absurd. Me, the atheist who explained everything, now living in a sci-fi movie. This makes no sense, I thought. But it did. It made more sense than any equation I'd ever solved. Because I should be dead. Drowned. Stuck in the seatbelt. But I wasn't. Someone pulled me out. And that presence. I could still feel it, like an invisible hand had held me there. I remembered the light. The hand. The man in the water. It wasn't a dream. It was too real. His eyes, calm, steady, filled with something I had never seen in anyone. He wasn't a firefighter. He wasn't a neighbor. He was Jesus. I shook my head. Cut it out, man. You're losing it. But it didn't stop. The image stayed. And with it, a peace I had never known. I started crying. Not from pain, from relief, from gratitude. Me who never thanked anything other than myself, now whispering, "Thank you, whoever you are." And for the first time, it wasn't sarcasm. The firefighters arrived hours later. A boat, siren, voices shouting. "Is anyone there?" I lifted my hand, weak. "Here." They climbed up, lowered me with a rope, wrapped me in a thermal blanket. They asked, "How'd you get up there?" "By yourself." I just shook my head. "I don't know." They exchanged looks. One of them, older, said quietly, "I've seen this before. Pure deliverance." I heard it. And for the first time, I didn't laugh. I believed. Because the car was found 3 kilometers downstream. Door closed. Seatbelt locked. Windows intact. I didn't get out through there. But I got out. In the ambulance, as they took me to the hospital, I looked at the sky. The rain had stopped. A ray of sunlight split the clouds. And I felt it again. That presence. It wasn't hallucination. It was real. And it was with me. My change didn't start in the tree. It started right there, in the silence between the miracle and the science that couldn't explain it. I still didn't know his name. But I already knew he knew mine. And that I would never be the same. I arrived at the hospital drenched, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like mold and disinfectant. The nurse cut my shirt, checked my blood pressure, cleaned the cut on my forehead. "You were born again, kid," she said, half smiling, half serious. I just nodded, still stunned. They took me for x-rays, checked ribs, lungs, everything. Nothing broken. Just scratches. Mild hypothermia. The doctor, a guy with a gray beard, shook his head. "Impressive. With the amount of time you were underwater, you should have drowned." I swallowed hard. "How long?" He looked at his watch. "At least 20 minutes. Maybe more." 20 minutes. Without breathing. Trapped. And I was there talking. On the gurney, waiting to be discharged, the firefighter came in. The same one who got me out of the tree. He brought a plastic bag with my documents, wallet, car keys, soaked but intact. "We found this in the passenger seat," he said, and pulled out the seatbelt. Cut. Clean. Like a knife had sliced it. But I didn't have a knife. Or tools. "You cut this?" he asked. I shook my head. "Impossible." I was stuck. He went quiet, then said softly, "Then it really was Deliverance." And he handed me a paper. A photo of the car. Submerged. Door locked. Seatbelt intact, locked onto the dummy they used for testing. I trembled. Not from cold. I stayed in the hospital for 2 days. Nights without sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the light. The hand. The man. And the question hammered. Who was he? Me, who spent years mocking believers, now Googling on the hospital phone. Vision of Jesus in water. Flood miracle. Person saved supernaturally. I read testimonies. Cried quietly. One talked about faith born in chaos. Another about transformations that can't be explained. I felt both. My chest burned. Not from infection, from something bigger. It was him. On the 3rd day, the psychologist came. "You went through trauma. Hallucinations are normal." I laughed. "Hallucinations don't cut seatbelts. Don't put me in a tree." She wrote things down, suggested therapy. I thanked her, but I knew therapy wouldn't fix what was happening inside me. I needed answers. I needed purpose. Because if that was real, and it was, then everything I believed was wrong. My whole life was a lie. And the truth hurt, but it freed me. I left the hospital with discharge papers, painkillers, and one certainty. I couldn't go back to who I was. That arrogant atheist died in the flood. What remained was a broken man, but alive. Alive to find out who saved me. And why. The presence of God, the one I denied my entire life, now walked beside me. And I knew. The journey was just beginning. I left the hospital with a backpack of borrowed clothes and a paper that said, "Survivor." I took a cab to the building where I lived, in the center of a city that still smelled like mud. The doorman saw me, eyes wide. "My God, you're alive!" I gave a shy smile, took the elevator up, and when the apartment door opened, the silence swallowed me. Everything the same. Leather couch, giant TV, half a bottle of whiskey on the table. But me. I was different. I looked in the bathroom mirror. Stubble, sunken eyes, a stitched cut on my forehead. "Who are you?" I asked the reflection. It didn't answer. Just stared back with a sadness I had never noticed. I spent the day cleaning. Threw out old condoms, magazines, posters of bands that preached nihilism. Opened the windows. Let the wind in. Sat on the living room floor with my laptop and started typing. What happened to me? I wrote everything. The light, the hand, the tree, the seatbelt. Read it out loud and cried again. It wasn't drama. It was relief. Because for the first time, I admitted, I didn't save myself. Someone greater did. And that someone had a name. Jesus. Saying the name out loud made my neck shiver. It was real. as real as the cut on my forehead. That night, my mom called. "Son, I heard about the flood. I prayed so much." She was crying. I never let her talk about faith. I always shut it down. This time, I listened. "Mom, I saw him. In the water. He pulled me out." Silence on the other end. Then a sob. "I knew one day you would feel God's presence." She invited me to church on Sunday. I hesitated. "I'll think about it." But deep down, I already knew I would go. Because the emptiness I used to fill with work now asked for something else. It asked for purpose. It asked for real transformation. In the middle of the night, I couldn't take it anymore. I opened the closet, grabbed the Bible she gave me on my 15th birthday, still wrapped in plastic. I sat on my bed and opened it randomly. It landed on John 11, "I am the resurrection and the life." I read it out loud. And then came the question that wouldn't leave me alone. Have you ever felt an emptiness that nothing explains, even when you have everything? Tell me in the comments. What would you do if you saw a light like that in your worst moment? Because I saw it. And it changed everything. I fell asleep with the Bible on my chest. For the first time in years, no nightmare. I woke up with the sun coming through the window and one certainty. The deliverance wasn't just of the body. It was of the soul. And now, I needed to learn how to live again. With faith. With Him. With a purpose I didn't even know existed. Sunday morning. I was standing at the door of the church my mom had attended since I was a kid. The same one I avoided like the plague. Borrowed dress shirt, tight shoes, heart pounding louder than the bell inside. I walked in late and sat in the last pew, trying not to be noticed. But the pastor was already at the pulpit. Today we're talking about deliverance. About those who were pulled out of the valley of the shadow of death. I looked around, sweating cold. He was talking about me. About the miracle no one there knew about yet. God's presence weighed in the air, as real as the smell of coffee in the hall. Worship started. People singing with their eyes closed, hands raised. I stayed seated, arms crossed, but the lyrics got to me, "Your love never fails." A woman next to me was crying softly. A guy in a suit clapped along. I felt a lump in my throat. When the pastor called for prayer, he said, "If you're here for the first time, or you've come back after years, raise your hand." My hand went up on its own, trembling. He prayed for me without knowing my name. "Lord, complete the work you started in this heart." And then I broke down. I cried like a child. Everyone saw it. No one judged. After the service, my mom hugged me tight. "Welcome back, son." She took me to the youth group. Me, 32 years old, surrounded by teenagers. But I didn't feel out of place. A guy named Lucas hugged me. I used to be an atheist too. Until Jesus got me in a motorcycle accident. He showed me the scar. Told me about the miracle. I told him about mine. For the first time, I said it out loud. I saw Jesus in the water. He saved me. The words came out heavy, but freeing. The group prayed for me. Hands on my head. Warmth. Peace. Transformation happening right there in front of everyone. On the way out, the pastor called me. "Want to get baptized?" I hesitated. "I'm still learning." He smiled. "Faith isn't knowing everything. It's taking the first step." I went home with a New Testament as a gift. That night, for the first time, I prayed. On my knees, on my bedroom floor. "Jesus, if it's really you, teach me to live for you." There was no thunder, no light, but I had peace. A peace that can't be explained. I slept the whole night. Woke up wanting to read, to ask, to change. The life change wasn't theory anymore. It was practice. Daily. Real. And that's when I decided, I'm going to tell the world about this. Not to brag, but so others know, Deliverance doesn't end at the tree. It starts there and goes as far as we allow it to. I allowed it. And now the journey was different. From ex-atheist to living testimony. But a bigger step was coming. One that would make me face my past head-on. Weeks later, the pastor called me to the pulpit. "Your story is going to touch lives," he said. I was shaking inside. Me, the guy who used to mock Christians online, now going up there to talk about Jesus? But faith was growing stronger than fear. The church was packed, cameras streaming live on YouTube. I sat in the front row, hands sweating, whispering a prayer. "Speak through me, Lord." When he called my name, I stood up. My voice cracked at first. I used to be an atheist, thought God was a joke. Nervous laughs from the crowd. But I kept going, until the flood, until he pulled me out of the water. I told everything. The light, the hand, the tree, the cut seatbelt. I showed the scar on my forehead, the medical report. 20 minutes underwater. No air. And here I am. Complete silence. Then applause. Women crying, men nodding. A guy in the front shouted, "Glory to God!" I continued, "My transformation wasn't magic. It was daily. Reading the Bible, praying, forgiving the people I hurt. God's presence isn't theory. It's real." In the middle of it, I looked at the camera and asked, "Can you believe that an atheist like me saw Jesus reaching out his hand in my worst moment? Has anything like that ever happened to you? Tell me in the comments now." I stepped down from the pulpit and a line formed. People I'd never met hugging me. I was at rock bottom. "You gave me hope." A woman, I doubted, but now. A father, "I'm coming back to church because of you." My mom in the first row, eyes shining with pride. I saw the miracle multiplying. It wasn't just my deliverance anymore. It belonged to everyone. The life change that started in the water was now echoing in dozens of hearts. Faith lighting up like bonfires in the night. I went home with messages on my phone. Old friends asking to talk. Former co-workers saying, "I saw a light once too." I created a YouTube channel, From Atheist to Miracle. Posted the first video telling everything. In 24 hours, 50K views. Comments, "This is proof God exists. My life changed today." I replied to each one, praying for every person. The purpose was clear. I wasn't saved to stay quiet. I was saved to shout. To show that Jesus reaches the ones no one else reaches. And that's how it started. Speeches, interviews, a book in the works. But deep down, I knew, this doesn't end. Each day is a new deliverance, a new transformation. The ex-atheist's journey has no end, only a beginning. And if you're reading this, maybe it's your beginning too.